when it comes to recruiting for a team, where should a company start? At what level should they start at, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is something we were talking about the other day, because we were kind of thinking about this as a blog idea, as in, kind of what key people do you need in your team to get started on kind of an analytics project. I suppose kind of the most important, I guess, would be like the solution architect, in terms of starting on day one, working out, okay, what is it we're looking to deliver, what parts of the jigsaw do we need to actually make this thing work end to end.
Yeah.
Along with, I guess, the business analyst.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the business analyst has to be somebody that understands data. They have to be that bridge.
Yeah.
So not only do they need, it certainly helps if they have a really good feel for the business domain, whether it be finance, whether it be HR, sales and marketing. If they've worked in that space, they'll understand the common challenges, but they'll also understand the data team. So, the solution architect, I almost see the business analyst as the bridge between the solution architect and might be your finance director, is saying, this is what we're trying to achieve as a business.
Yeah.
This is what we would like to measure. And then the business analyst will almost sort of relay that to your architect, and the architect will say, okay, this is what you're trying to do, and this is strategically where you'd like to go. Here's a solution that would help you get there.
Yeah, and I suppose the key, and you probably find this maybe more in terms of the kind of roles and stuff you get in at the moment, but I think more than ever, people who are on the technical side, especially at the beginning, need to have a very strong functional understanding. We have to be able to work together with business teams, especially early on in the project, to really make sure that all the processes are set up. You understand the data, you understand exactly what you're building, and likewise the other way around, the business analyst or whoever it is from the business with that knowledge needs to have an understanding of the data. What is it we're trying to build? How do we kind of translate that? So I think in the beginnings of the project, those skills is almost very kind of similar between the business analyst, who needs to have a strong data understanding, and the kind of solution architect, who needs to have a strong business understanding.
Yeah.
I suppose you maybe see it with some of the roles that you place in now with.
We do, yeah. But we see this, I guess, challenge where you've got a small company that can't necessarily afford to take on a business analyst and a solution architect and a data analyst and a data scientist.
Yeah.
So they've got, a senior person there who will recruit a data scientist and a data analyst. And I think we've talked about how much time spent does a data scientist spend on cleaning up data. And I get this feeling a little bit like, a really, like Picasso, you wouldn't get him just sort of painting a wall, would you?
No.
And maybe I'm making data science a little bit more grandiose than they actually are, I don't know, but still it's about making sure people are doing the right thing in their skill set. And I guess if you've got somebody, a data scientist in, there's no point in getting them to do the heavy lifting when you can have a data engineer or a data analyst to do that for you.
Exactly. I think that's the key. If you have systems in place, and as we were talking about earlier, kind of automated processes, and lots of this is coming in now for kind of making manual tasks such as data cleaning. There's artificial intelligence which is starting to be used to automatically clean the data, prep the data. Actually, the more that you can automate that stuff and let the data scientists get on with their job, it's kind of the same with anything, right? If you've got like a manager, you don't want them taking all the notes for meetings and doing all that stuff, wasting time on the low-value tasks. It's the same concept, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I think the data scientist role is a really good example. It's that stat that 80% spend their time cleansing and combining data, and again, it's this point that what's his name, Robert Thomas from IBM made, that the biggest challenge to that scalable AI is collecting and organising data. Now, is your data scientist who's got heavy statistical background and super smart and are those guys, should they be spending 80% of their time doing that, or should they be analysing and creating value from that data for the business? But for the smaller companies, it's a challenge, right? Because you've got all of these roles, and the blog
Yeah.
that we're going to post shortly, people will go, oh, I need all of those roles. But actually, so something that Peter Jackson and Caroline Carruthers talk about in their Chief Data Officer playbook, they talk about just making sure that people you do hire, they use the term data cheerleaders. So people who've got curiosity to learn more about the business and about data and people who innovate, but people who are going to go out and build the case for why data is important and how it can add value in that business. So I would say, if you can't afford all of those resources, maybe get someone that can build Power BI reports and learn a little bit of DAX code to just get people excited and somebody that's passionate and enthusiastic about it. And I think once you can start to illustrate value from doing those more basic tasks and even using, like I say, Microsoft Flows to automate things, it doesn't even need to be Flows, right? But also a tool like that. Existing BI tools have got capabilities to create alerts and do certain things, and there's lots of ways you can simplify. So, but I think regardless of who it is from a recruitment perspective, I just say make sure those people are passionate and make sure they're good communicators. I think that's really, really key.
Do you see yourself as data scientists yourself?
I wish I could give myself a grandiose term like data scientist. I think I wouldn't call myself a data scientist. My partner actually is a data scientist, so I know that if she's watching me, there's no way I can claim to get away with it. I'm not going to get away with it, I'll get called out. But I think, so I would class myself as kind of a data engineer and kind of more working, work stream lead kind of roles on projects. But I think the key is for companies to start thinking about how, making sure they don't run before they can walk.
Yeah.
So they need to get the data in place to actually be able to get the most value out of AI. So this is about building foundations, building a scalable data warehouse, somewhere where you can actually store your data, things are correctly, basics like master data, making sure your customers, your products, you know what they are, you don't have it in lots of different systems, lots of different places. And that's, I suppose, where I see us as being, where we come in, is kind of, okay, we'll build you that data foundation, we'll give you the place where you can actually go in, you can start accessing your data, you start understanding your data, and then as you mature, you'll have your reports, you'll build a proper reporting solution, then you'll probably look towards the data scientists, where you then say, okay, we know that we are making this much profit, we know that we're making this many sales, how do we find the variables that maybe we've not seen before? We know we're tracking them, but we don't know that this affects sales in this way.
Yeah.
That's where then you start to bring those data scientists in, and I suppose that's how the two link together really.
Yeah. So I see Snap Analytics and where we come in. It's about that collecting and organising of information.
Yeah.
So what that does, it enables your scalable AI. It enables your analysts who are out in the business trying to make sense of data as well. And I think, historically there's been this almost divide. We're going to go and build a data lake and do some data science, or we're going to get Power BI and just build some reports without, because collecting and organising information, it's not sexy, right? Whereas if you've got a dashboard, you're building AI, we're doing AI, it's great. I think what often gets forgotten is actually the collecting and organising of information is really, really critical if you want to do self-service analytics or AI at scale. And the scale thing is important because, yes, you can build some reports, you can do it off of Excel, but is that going to scale over billions of rows of data? Is it going to have longevity? Is it going to be flexible? So if you build lots of logic in Power BI reports, over time it gets to a point where someone asks you for a change and it's going to take you a week to do it because you built so much logic in the wrong layer.
And actually, fundamentally, if you've got kind of three people telling you different sales numbers for the same thing, then you get yourselves into a real mess and end up spending so much time trying to work that out. And that's often what happens, right? Someone goes away and they build their Excel because they don't have the platform to be able to get the data themselves. Someone else goes, builds a Power BI report, does the same thing, but with lots of different logic. And then you get into a place where actually your business reporting starts to be a mess. I think that's the point, right? Get the foundation layer in place. Everyone knows the core data they're working from. It's correct, it's validated, there's kind of a clear lineage, you can trace the data, it's auditable, and then you can start doing your AI and your data science and stuff on top of that.
So the message is get the basics right, get the foundation in place,
Yeah.
make sure that your data's in a reasonably good format and,
Yeah.
and it's good quality.
Yeah.
And do the simple things right, basically, yeah?
Yeah, basically, it's not a new concept.
No, it's not.
That's
It's,
why
it's
you know, maybe we're preaching the same old stuff, but actually it's still important. Right? There's still big businesses that are not using a common data platform. There's so much more data being created that the need for this is still probably more important than ever.
yeah.
And I think what you were saying about kind of small companies, it's the same with big companies, right? Hiring data scientists to try and tackle a particular problem, but actually, they're trying to cheat the system. They're trying to get to the latest step, but they waste the time. Trying to clean the data, bring the data together, all of that stuff. Just get the basics.
Yeah.
And I think, although it might be the same old stuff, I think the problem gets bigger, but the solution gets easier. So what I mean by that is the problem of having to join data from lots of different sources. You've now got lots of external sources and APIs. You've got on-premise systems. You've got SaaS solutions. You've got the likes of Salesforce and Workday now. Historically, you might have had all your data in a big monolithic ERP system. I think even Gartner say the days of the monolithic ERP system are over. What does that mean? It means the data's in more places now, not fewer. So you need a platform where you can join it together more than ever. The reason I think the solution, in a sense, gets easier. So the technical solutions is that the cloud enables me to create a massively scalable data warehouse in seconds, maybe minutes at a push. I can literally fire up this service and load billions of rows of data. I can scale that up and down in seconds as I would like. I can pay for what I use. What that does is it gives you back time. So the 3 months or 6 months that you would have spent, procuring servers and scaling them, deciding how much, load you need and disk space, that kind of goes away now because actually I can fire up a data warehouse, I can start to do a POC, and I know that, whether I've got 100 rows or 50 million rows, it's going to scale quite quickly. So I can take back that time and I can start to invest it in looking at my master data, looking at my data quality and building those relationships with the business.
Yeah.
So rather than the techies all sat in a room doing stuff and people scratching their heads going, I don't know what these guys are doing. We were doing stuff. We were working busily away. Look, indexing tables, things like that. You don't have to do anymore. Performance tuning to try and make sure that the report runs within 10 seconds
incorrectly and all that stuff.
All of that overhead now starts to go away with tools like Snowflake, and what that means is it doesn't mean there's going to be mass redundancies, right? Necessarily. It means you can take back that time and invest it in the things that really, really add value. And I think there's this stat, 85% up to 85% of big data projects fail. But if you could take back that time spent doing technical stuff that you don't have to do anymore and actually invest it in data quality, in master data.
Work out the data that you need.
Building the data catalogue so the business understands what's in there. I think we can deliver much, much better solutions and we can deliver them quicker because you haven't got that same technical overhead.